Well, we're here live at CIM in Vancouver, and I'm with Brian Zadro, who's with Structural Composite Technologies. You've got a booth down here, right?
Yep, booth 411.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Here to talk a little bit about your company, and I guess we'll start with you. What's your position with the company?
I'm the general manager. Was sales manager there for a while. I started back in '95. I used to be a math teacher down in Georgia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so John Zadro, my brother, bought it, the company in '92. So he brought me up in '95, so we've joined forces and been together since. So we've gone through the growth of the mining industry. A big part of our industry is the potash and uranium industry, and they went through some exciting growths around 2000. And so we grew along with that. And so mining has been a big part of our industry for ever since I've joined the company, and it's definitely important to make sure that we support that industry and are there for when they need some solutions. So we were excited about that, and I guess I haven't told you, but we do a fiberglass fabricator. So
yeah,
I guess we need to fill that in. But so we do a lot of custom tanks and stacks and so forth. Mining uses a lot of corrosive products, so steel sometimes isn't the right application. And fiberglass seems to fall nicely into that mix of things.
So you're not a distributor. You are a manufacturer of these products.
Yeah, we are a manufacturer. We got 3 engineers on board. So we do the design. So a customer will come to us and they'll have what they want to solve in terms of a chemical or a process. We'll ask for the structural requirements in terms of, is there a vacuum or is there a pressure? What's the temperatures? What's the chemicals, pH rating, and so forth? And then we'll design that tank structurally to be able to handle that environment that it's going to go into. So sometimes it's ducting, so there might be a vacuum into it, or there might be some pressure. We need to understand that plays a big factor in terms of how you design that thing. So it works really well in terms of what we have for the solution provider. That we're all trying to find solutions for our customers and making sure that we give them what they need, because if you make the wrong recommendation, it gives everybody a black eye. It gives a black eye to the industry. It gives a black eye to the products that we sell. It gives a black eye to the guy who trusted you. So nobody benefits for just that quick sale. It's what you want for solutions, so the guys can feel comfortable approaching you and say, hey, listen, here's my problem. How do you help us with that? And that's what we take a lot of pride in.
Yeah, I don't. I'm far from an expert on these tanks, so this might be a very simplified question, but
I like simple questions. That's good.
Well, you're going to get a couple.
Okay.
What are you trying to avoid when you say solutions and a black eye on the industry? What are the potential issues that you're trying to avoid when you're engineering something for a customer? Are we talking about leaks, or what are the potential?
That's a great simple question. And those are the questions that we want our customers to ask, because a quarter-inch piece of steel is a quarter-inch piece of steel is a quarter-inch piece of steel. Now, they get steel from somewhere else, and they might have different things that are into it, and it doesn't last as well. From fiberglass, it's a hand layup process unless you're going to be close molding it. But there's so many things in terms of the chemistry that goes on to it, and you have to have that experience to know, how thick you're going to build it, where you're going to put your ribbing profile, how you're going to do your secondary bonding. You got to make sure, because there is a little bit of a black magic to fiberglass until you're into it and you understand it. But a guy who builds a boat mixes part A and part B together. Well, this is really cool. I built a boat. Now I can build a tank, and they can't. Because it's a whole different level of engineering. And so you got to make sure you take the wind loads into place when you're building a stack. You got to understand that 1 in 100-year wind. You got to take, in BC, you got earthquakes, so you got to take that into consideration. So you got to structurally build this thing, and not only that, though, then you got to take the chemicals into consideration, because your resin suppliers will say you have to do certain things to this resin to be able to handle those chemicals. And if you're not covering your bases in all those areas, now you got a tank that lasts you 5 years instead of 20 years. And so we're trying to educate our customers, like, not everybody can build a tank. You want to have a good fabricator that can be able to give you the proper direction and give you that length. They're happy with a tank that lasts 4 or 5 years, and they say, okay, well, I guess that's fiberglass, and we'll go ahead and reline it. And they spent $100,000 to reline a tank. So you want to make sure that they have the experience in that. We've been around since 1961. We are the oldest fiberglass fabricator in Canada.
Really?
So it's, we've been around for a long time. Now, I haven't been around that long, but, there's a lot of case histories that we've done. And so we take a lot of pride into what we provide for solutions to our customers when it comes to stuff like that.
Well, and who are your customers? So you talked about mining, but this must span across multiple industries, of course.
Well, yeah. We got a couple different departments of structural. Like we got the stuff that I take care of is the industrial stuff, which is the mining, and we have a utilities department. We take care of like the hydroelectric utilities and so forth. But from the industrial perspective, we do a lot with water and waste. So the water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants. And then in the mining side of it, Saskatchewan, they've got potash and uranium. So all the Potash Corp, which is now Nutrien, Cameco and Areva, Mosaic, Agrium, those are some big customers of ours. Then in Manitoba, you've got Hudson Bay Mining and Smelting, or Hud Bay Minerals and Vale. Then you come out into the Edmonton area, you start getting more into the oil fields. And then obviously Teck in British Columbia is a big potential customer. We don't do a lot out west, trying to get a little bit more of a footprint. At the end of the day, you're shipping a tank, you're shipping air. You pay for freight of air. So, you get some pretty big vessels that are rolling down the road there, and something's worth $100,000. It's cost you $15,000 just to ship it. Well, your freight costs are 15%. Right. So, there are some local area customers or manufacturers that it's a little bit more advantageous to ship from there. There was a big company, they're a fantastic company called ZCL out of Edmonton, who they were a fiberglass fabricator. From the industrial perspective, they just shut that part of their business down to focus on other things. So that's kind of left a void for some of the other fabricators to pick up the pieces to. They are one of the best publicly traded company, and so they'll leave a good void and a good legacy behind in terms of what is the standard of what to do. So it's up to all the fabricators that want to jump into that business to be able to keep that responsibility going. And it's scary because there are some that you want to make sure they got the QA documentation, the safety, that whole gamut that those industries demand, that they're keeping up with that, and it's an opportunity for a lot of people.
Something you said, and I didn't realize when I was going through, when I first looked at your material. So are you custom now? Do you have a product line, or is every single one? Because you talked about the different ribbing.
Yep.
So is every single piece custom ordered, or do you have some product lines or standard things for certain applications? How does that work?
For the mining industry, the vessels that we build all go through my engineers' hands. So they will be designed. Some of them, they'll say, hey, I want the exact same thing.
Right.
We will still do calculations on them to make sure, because we may have built that 15 years ago. Technology is better. Information is better, so you still double check the math. We do have some items that are repeatable stuff. On the mining side, we have a structural side of things, which we purchase products from a company called Strongwell. They're the world's largest fiberglass pultruder, and they manufacture products like fiberglass grating, beams, I-beams, channel, angle, handrail, ladders. So we bring that in, and that's something we will put together as a platform for a customer, or they'll do a steel platform with fiberglass grating. So that will be an off-the-shelf item, but it's all engineered. Right. So it all has load tables, and so the design is based around that. But those are more of your repeatable stuff, but we just bring that in. We don't manufacture that. So everything that we manufacture on the industrial side, I'm just trying to think, we have some items that are reused, like they keep adding more to it, but nothing where it doesn't go without a shop drawing. And if there's a shop drawing, then my engineer has had his hands on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I was looking too at this. I mean, you got I've got tanks, covers, ducting, pipe, FRP grading, and platforms. I'm going to have to ask you about that one. But these covers, those are going on steel tanks then, or
concrete.
Or concrete.
Yeah, usually it's concrete with a liner of some sort, and then there's a big cover. So we just did one that was 65-foot diameter. So they're a bunch of pie pieces that come together to a compression ring on top. Right. And so that's, those are usually for like a clarifier where there's a high heat and there's a mixer inside, like a big mixing rake. The thing takes about 3 minutes for it to go around one revolution sort of deal. But yeah, we've done lots of stuff like that.
Yeah, and then ducting, and so the pipe. What would be an example of fiberglass pipe? What would you transport in that?
Well, hydrochloric acid, ferric chloride, anything that's a chemical that you need stainless steel piping for. It could be a 2-inch pipe, could be a 6-inch pipe, could be a 24-inch pipe. So a lot of mines and mills will use fiberglass piping as opposed to a steel pipe. Like you deal with a potash mine, there's such a high salt and rust is such a big factor. Fiberglass just works really nicely into that environment. And there's some areas there where steel just makes absolute sense, and absolute steel is going to be the more cost-effective solution. When you start getting into the stainless steels, the Hastelloys, the titaniums, that's where it really gets pricey.
So fiberglass kind of ends up being in between
carbon steel and stainless steel.
I see.
Yeah, from a price point, and then fiberglass is so much lighter that your installation costs end up being a little bit. You don't need as heavy duty of cranes. Kind of funny story. The owner of our company was building a deck in his back of his house, and I told him, I said, well, you're a fiberglass guy, you might as well build a fiberglass deck. So he had these 20-foot long 6-inch I-beams, and they're gray. They look steel. And he's talking to his neighbor, and as he's talking to his neighbor, he takes one of these beams and throws it over his shoulder and walks down to his backyard. And the guy goes, yeah, don't let me mess around with you. So it's kind of neat, but it's just so much lighter and easier to work with.
That's something you kind of like learn something new every day. So that's a major factor too when you're installing, because the cost of moving the heavy machinery used is going to be different for having to.
Yeah, and what happens here is the guys that install are used to steel, so they don't understand the fiberglass until they've worked with it enough times.
Right.
So there's always this black magic, right? I mean, so they overdo it, and rightfully so. I get it, and then the guys that have worked with it enough times realize, hey, there's some price savings here, but I'm not going to share it with the rest of the world because I don't want my competitors to know that. But there is some efficiencies of working with fiberglass once you understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, you drill a hole in fiberglass, those things will wear out your bits. So you have to have special bits because that glass will just wear, where you drill through steel, it's different, right?
Yeah. What about longevity compared to the steel?
Well, it depends on the environment. So when you're dealing with chemicals like fiberglass, it's not compostable. You can't just get tongue twisted on that.
Whatever that word.
Yeah, but it's not something that degrades, so it lasts forever. Which if you're looking to, it's not a green environment product at all. So when you're dealing with the chemical industry, it handles very, very well.
Right.
And we've got tanks. I've inspected a tank because, this tank was built in the 50s. I've inspected a tank that's over 50 years old. It looks old, but it's in great shape, And one of the testing things that we do is we do a Barkle hardness. And it's usually a Barkle hardness when a tank is leaving our shop, just when we're finished laying up, is around a 30, 32. This tank was a 60 but it's 50 years old. Fiberglass is a little bit like concrete. It's always curing.
Oh,
okay. So you get your majority of your cure up front, but then you still get this curing process that's happening. So, this thing had 50 years of curing, and it was rock hard, and it was in great shape. And they asked if they needed to do anything. I said, besides a couple little repairs, you're good to go. This tank is solid.
And is that going back to the skill of whoever made that tank, as opposed, like, is it when you actually manufacture the fiberglass itself? Is there just a way to do it, and then its thickness and everything, or is it actually the manufacturer technique that makes it higher quality?
It's a little bit of everything. There's different chemicals that respond differently. So that could have been, if that was a little bit more of an aggressive chemical, probably had a little bit more aggressive of attack on some of the corrosion liner. Fabricator for sure, because you want to make sure that you have a good corrosion liner. It's resin rich and it's got very little air bubbles. No air bubbles. That's the idea. Picking the proper products. And then, obviously the reinforcing and the engineering for that. In that particular instance, the technology of fiberglass back in the 50s wasn't that great. So, obviously, I would think that the product that was inside, and actually remembering it, wasn't that aggressive of a product at all. So I think that it was a little bit of a lucky situation there, which I'm not promoting fiberglass right now at this point. But the technology of the resin is so advanced, especially in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it's staying on top of the industry of what to have. So a tank that lasts 20 years, now you're getting 25, 30 years out of it. One thing nice about fiberglass is if it starts to your corrosion layer starts to get compromised, you can reline it. You don't have to tear this tank apart.
Right.
So you don't have to rip your wall out or rip any fittings out. You go ahead, you bring a crew in, you sandblast it, you give it a relining. And that's the nice thing about fiberglass, because your mold is right there. The tank is there, so you can always fix that up. So there's lots of good products out there that can that even make fiberglass more of a viable thing. Here's an interesting thing: is fiberglass, of all the building materials that are out there, when we look at the world and what we're building, you know, steel and plastic and wood, all the materials that are used, fiberglass is 4% of the building materials used.
Really?
In 5 years, it's going to be 8%. That doubles our industry. Fiberglass is becoming used more and more and more. You're seeing it on buses. You're seeing it on planes. Boeing is a huge, and you know it's all about fuel costs, right?
Right.
You're seeing fiberglass is becoming the product of the future, and so you know when we got into when John looked at fiberglass back in '92, he says this is the product that you want to be in.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways of doing it. And it's quite interesting to watch it develop. I'm glad I'm part of it. It's a great industry to be part of.
Yeah, well, I certainly didn't know much about it before this interview.
Well, that's awesome. That's good.
How's the show for you?
Show's good. Yeah, the show is really good. You know what? It's so encouraging to watch record numbers. Over 5,000 people have signed up for this. You know what? It is a good environment. The opening ceremonies were fantastic. You put things on the right foot.
Yeah.
You got some good quality people going here. You know, you wish you could meet them all. You know, and the only thing I wish instead of the name being so big, I wish the company was so big, because you grab somebody out of the aisle and it's somebody that's totally independent of what you do or a competitor.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a great show. I'm really glad that we're part of it. You know, it was a choice of whether we walk it or display. I'm glad we're presenting in it. Yeah,
we had the same option, and I watch out of the corner of my eye the consultants, and they don't stop. It's just one person after another, which is just fantastic for a show like this. It's a big investment of time and money to be here, and they've done a nice job of attracting people to it.
They have, and you know what? You're going to spend all that money to try to see these people on your own.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, you know, whatever it's going to cost, as much as it's a big bill up front, you try to go see these people, it's going to cost you double that easy.
Yeah, easy.
And you know what? What a beautiful city this is. The first time in Vancouver for me.
Oh, this is your first time here.
And I got to tell you, you know, I walked down to the waterfront and I took a picture of this cruise ship in a pair of shorts over the lake, city, mountains, ice caps on top. And I posted on Instagram, and I says, you know, I don't know why we're living in Winnipeg, but Vancouver doesn't have the Jets.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
We got it, man. I'll tell you, that is just our city is just going over the edge, and it's just a wonderful thing to be part of.
I was there about a year ago, or not, a year before the Jets came, and the city was already kind of buzzing. You talk to people, and they'd mention it. You know, you'd go into a restaurant, they were, you know, you could just feel that it was ready to come.
Yeah.
And then has that organization delivered?
Well, you know, it's amazing what it's done, and I think that people appreciate it more once we lost it. You always say you never knew how much you appreciate it until you lose something, right? This city will never let go of that team, and what you know, I mean, what Shovel Day Off has done, and the team and the coaches have developed that team into is such an entertaining product they put on the ice. And then what they're doing on Donald Street right beside, they call it the airstrip.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were just hoping to have a few thousand people there, and I think they broke 20,000 people last game on the street at the street party, and they call it the airstrip.
Oh,
and I bet you there'll be 30,000 people there tonight.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's hard being a Vancouver fan watching it, to be honest.
You know, but you got to be proud of the fact that there's a Canadian team that's going to make a run at this.
Fantastic, yeah.
You know, so we're pretty happy to be part of it. You know, anytime there's a playoffs, you're just rooting for the Canadian teams.
Yeah, it's just been too long. You know, and it's good for because Winnipeg is still a fairly new team, so it's good for the game having them making such a big bang.
Yeah, it's exciting. Oh my Lord, the guy's a force, eh?
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. So. Yeah. Brian, thanks for joining.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this, and hopefully everything goes well for you the rest of the show.
Yeah, for you as well.
Okay, thanks a lot.